As an Android user, I'm extremely jealous of how the iPhone 17 Pro is built. However, Apple forgot to do one really important thing. They ignored an international standard, and it's going to haunt every single person who buys this phone. And there's no way to fix it. The colorful exterior aluminum oxide anodized layer on the iPhone is a level 9 on most scale of hardness. Second in hardness only to diamonds, which are a level 10. We'll talk more about this in a second, but in order to achieve that durable oxide layer, the bare aluminum frame is dipped into an acidic electrolyte bath and then electrified. It's a really cool process to watch, and happens very quickly. However, the sharp corners, like the ones you see here on the iPhone 17 Pro camera plateau, are the literal Achilles heel of anodizing. It's the weakest point of the coating, since there's not enough substrate or aluminum at that sharp corner to securely hold the top aluminum oxide in place. And Apple went and made the literal sharpest cliff possible here on the iPhone 17 Pro. For some reason, Apple didn't add a chamfer, fillet, or radius around the camera plateau, and I think it was intentional, so it looks cooler. But that decision to look cool out of the box is going to plague everyone who owns this phone down the road. And I'll show you physically what I mean. I do still have a buy a big knife, get a little jerry-rig knife free deal going to the end of the month. Just add them both to your cart at the same time and the discount is automatic. But let's not get distracted. Jumping in to get a closer look with the digital microscope, this thing is so fun, we can first scope into the leaf of the Apple logo. But that's not what we came here to see. The cliff Apple has milled into the aluminum has no chamfer, bevel, or fillet, and it's about as straight up and down as aluminum can get. And you'll see why that's a problem here in a second. And don't get me wrong, I am a huge fan of the switch from a glass slab sandwich to this new aluminum unibody design. Overall, it's more durable. Aluminum is a Mohs 3 or 4 on the Mohs scale of hardness, while glass is a 5 or 6. Unless, of course, we're talking about Corning's new Ceramic Shield 2, in which case some black magic somehow makes the marks at level 6 and 7 almost disappear. The level 8 pick behaves like usual though, and gashes through the glass with no problem. The front 18 megapixel camera is also protected under the same slab of Ceramic Shield 2. This has the new square sensor inside, which hopefully we'll see more of during the teardown. The camera sits just below the razor-thin earpiece slit, and part of me is curious if just rubbing the Pro on a table is enough to snap those corners off of the camera plateau. But nope, so far so good. And of course, while the Ceramic Shield 2 is indeed the best we've ever seen, glass is still glass, and it's never a bad idea to add a layer of protection to your phone, especially in this economy where resale value is extremely important. The Prism glass from my channel sponsor dbrand has a foolproof installation procedure with its own applicator, placing the clear protective slab of glass perfectly in place every time. I'll leave a link for the Prism glass in the description. It comes with 2 in the box. You might be like, hey Jerry, if the anodizing is actually a level 9, why does it scratch at all? And that's a fantastic question. The decorative anodizing that Apple applies to the surface of their phone could be anywhere from 2 to 25 micrometers in thickness. That's about 0.025 millimeters or less than half the diameter of a human hair. Not that I would know. It's a tough, colorful shell, tougher than regular paint to be sure, just not super thick, which means it's not invincible. The top of the iPhone 17 Pro has a plastic 5G antenna slot, and the left side has more of the brilliant orange anodizing and 3 buttons that will not be popping off on their own. The bottom of the 17 Pro has its USB-C port that can charge to 50% in about 20 minutes, as well as the lower stereo loudspeaker, which the new iPhone Air does not have. I think it'll be pretty cool to see what changes have happened on the inside, so make sure you're subscribed for the teardowns. The Apple logo on the cosmic orange is perfectly in place, like surprisingly well aligned with the glass etching. Thumbs up for that. Then at the top we have our 48 megapixel wide angle camera. Then the 48 megapixel main camera down at the bottom, and the 48 megapixel 4x telephoto off to the side, all of which are still covered with Apple's version of sapphire crystal. You can see the lenses registering on my diamond tester, while my Casio F91W does not. The single LED flash has a plastic diffuser, and then whatever laser focus thing this is on the other corner is protected with glass. While we're up here, it's time to see if I'm correct about that edge being fragile. Let's say you have your phone in the same pocket as a coin. Pretty normal everyday situation. The exterior level 9 anodizing layer is able to withstand any abrasion from that coin, except for on the sharp corner of the camera plateau. The corner of the plateau is rubbed off and gone. What about keys though? We've tested keys on anodizing before, and everywhere the oxide has been allowed to secure itself to the aluminum is protected from scratching, except for the sharp corner of the camera plateau. Again, after one incursion with a foreign object, that corner is now gone. Looking again through the microscope, the orange aluminum oxide is still looking fly, except for where it's not, and the silver is shining through. I think the deep blue anodizing is going to be even more susceptible to damage. The same coin that on the flat portion of the plateau gets sanded into dust, on the corner the anodizing is what chips away. The key, same thing. The plateau itself is super scratch resistant except for where Apple did not add the radius or curve to the plateau. The aesthetic design choice is going to end up looking worse in the long run because the anodizing just doesn't stick to that spot. It's a tad weird that Apple would do this. It's a well-known phenomenon, and there are several international standards for anodizing sharp corners. None of these are legally binding laws, by the way, just voluntary guidelines that manufacturers can follow if they want. The ISO standard says that sharp edges should be machined into a radius 10 times the intended thickness, which if Apple is using 25 micrometer thick anodizing, the minimum radius would be between 1/4 and 1/2 millimeter. The US military standard says about the same thing, a radius anywhere between 1/4 and 1/2 millimeter. But Apple just didn't follow either of those public suggestions. I'm sure the engineers at Apple suggested a fillet. It's usually the designers who veto smart ideas. On the blue camera shelf, you can see how a good chunk of that anodizing near the edge just sheared off like an iceberg in the Arctic. And don't get me wrong, I am a massive fan of this new iPhone design. Less glass and more aluminum is always a good thing when it comes to durability. These chips are purely cosmetic and won't affect the functionality of the phone. Just remember when damage does happen that it's not your imagination and not your fault. It's Apple's design because anodizing doesn't stick to corners. The smaller piece of textured glass on the back is just as abrasive as the anodized coatings and is very impervious to scratching. The dust just wipes away. If Apple would have added the same millimeter fillet to the camera plateau that they have everywhere else on the phone, there wouldn't be any issues with chipping, but it would look different than it does now. As it stands, the weakest point for cosmetic blemishes is going to be on that sharp edge where the anodizing isn't physically capable of sticking. And there's no way to avoid the inevitable chipping unless you never set your phone down, or, get a case. I'm not super nervous about the bin test on this one, it being a solid brick of aluminum and all. The 6.3-inch 3000 nit 120Hz Super Retina OLED display is also not affected by the heat from my lighter, even after 30 seconds of being torched. Finally, the bin test. There's more metal inside this 17 Pro than any other iPhone that Apple has ever made, so there's no surprise that it has zero flex, zero cracks, zero creaks, and zero damage when it comes to structural rigidity. The same goes for the iPhone 17 Pro Max. No flex, no bends, and 100% no issues whatsoever. The iPhone 17 Pro and Pro Max passed my durability test, except for the part where your iPhone 17 Pro is going to chip and there's nothing you can do to save it. Apple's own transparent case, which isn't all that transparent, does have a raised lip around the camera plateau, so that will help keep things intact. But if you want a case that looks even better and more transparent and more protective, I would suggest the Ghost case from Dbrand. It has a never yellowing guarantee and has full coverage for that camera plateau. Dbrand's been working with Best Buy on a nationwide retail rollout of the Ghost case, as well as the Prism screen protector that you saw earlier. It's already the #1 selling phone case nationwide for good reason. I'll leave a link down in the description where you can get 42% off the Prism when you bundle both together. Just use code JERRYRIG at checkout or swing by your local Best Buy. I'm partial, of course, to the grip case and my teardown skin though, but to each their own. Thanks a ton for watching. I'll see you around.